Welcome to the Big Stove, where we discuss the biggest stories in the world of sports. Get ready for passionate, intelligent conversation about the biggest issues and personalities in sports from the fans' perspective. It's unscripted, it's unfiltered, it's the Big Stove. Let's get started with the show.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Big Stove. It is August 13th, Thursday evening at 9:05 p.m. Lots to talk about in the world of sports today, especially college football, folks. I don't know if all of you have heard, but the Pac-12 and the Big 10 have formally announced that they are postponing all fall sports for 2020, leaving the SEC, the ACC, and the Big 12 left to ponder on if they're going to play or not. Now, some interesting news that I don't know if all of you have heard tonight is that the NCAA president, Mark Emmert, did announce that there will be no fall championships for the year 2020. So now we are left to ponder, what will the other three conferences of the Power Five do for their fall seasons? And then just recently, within the past half hour, Mark Emmert did announce that he will endorse potential bubbles for next year's fall championships. Going on to say here that, unlike the NCAA March Madness where you start off with 64 teams, he does say that 32, okay, maybe that's a manageable number. 16, certainly manageable, but then you've got to figure out those logistics. So there's ways to make that work. So, but it is expensive to use, but, it's a definite possibility for the future, especially going into 2021. But big news this week, Big 10, Pac-12 did postpone all of fall sports. SEC, ACC, and the Big 12 are on schedule to play football. I believe they are starting practices and everything else a couple weeks after Labor Day. So towards the end of September, if all stays on course with those three Power 5 conferences, you should see some fall football, hopefully, this fall. So keep your fingers crossed on that one. In other news in sports world, we got the NBA bubble. Regular season is has wrapped up, and they just came out with the playoff scenarios for this coming week, actually. And then we have the NHL. There goes the little one right there. Sorry about that. NHL has started games, and they are actually starting their playoffs as we speak. So they're good to go. And in baseball, you have all teams playing, and, well, not all teams. Those Cardinals keep on testing positive, keep on going to casinos and everything else. So, they're still awaiting. So they haven't played since July 29th, I believe. So they're still playing the waiting game. But everyone else is playing, so we got that to look forward to. So a little bit what we'll talk about today on tonight's podcast. Basically, we're going to stay in the college sports era and kind of talk about what the impact it has on, especially the Big 10 and the Pac-12, on the postponement of fall sports for those athletes and the future of what it holds. A lot of things were said this week, especially about my home team, the Nebraska Cornhuskers, especially by one Desmond Howard. We can get to that later on, but we will talk about what the effects are on those student athletes, and especially with the Pac-12, I believe it was last week, and how some of their players have started to come out and almost form a players union and demanding requests, whether it be for player safety, whether it be for monetizing their names from their universities and everything else like that. Is this the end of the NCAA? Could we start becoming or have a players union in college sports in the near future? Does this COVID-19 era kind of put a fast track on a players union in the college level? And will this be the end of a run for the NCAA? Time will tell, but it's definitely a possibility, definitely a scenario out there that we're all kind of looking at. But so we're going to stay in college sports tonight and just kind of dive into what it means for the Big 10, for the Pac-12, but then also the SEC, the ACC, and the Big 12. So we'll dive into that here, and I believe we already have a caller that's going to be calling in here. Josh Belcher from Webb City, Missouri. So get him on the line here in the next couple minutes. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back after this commercial break. And is brought to you by PocketPairClub.com. PocketPairClub.com. All your tournament poker needs, folks. All right, we are back here on The Big Stove. I'm your host, The Big Stove. Thursday night, August 13th, 2020, the COVID era. All right, so that commercial break was brought to you by the PocketPairClub.com, club number 26881. Club number 26881, PocketPairClub.com. So before we left for commercial break, we started talking about the NCAA and the postponement of fall sports, especially in a couple of the Power 5 conferences, the Big 10 and the Pac-12. Hey, Josh Freed, nice of you to join us here tonight. Appreciate that, bud. So on the other line here, I have a regular viewer named Josh Belcher from Webb City, Missouri. Hey, Josh, how's it going tonight, bud?
Doing good, man. How are you?
Hey, can't complain one bit. So, what are your thoughts here on the postponement of fall sports in a couple of the Power 5 conferences?
Well, first and foremost, I want to say I love the white New Balance shoes,
Hey,
and
I appreciate
those ankle, those calf socks, man. Only certain people can pull those off, and you're doing a great job of it.
I do what I can with what I can, bud. So I appreciate the compliments there. So always like rocking my New Balances and the calf socks when I can. So appreciate the very comfy. But so tell me what your thoughts are. What was running through your mind earlier this week when the Big Ten was the first to announce, and then the Pac-12 announced that they were postponing the fall sports.
You know, we all know COVID-19 is what it is. You know, I have kids that play sports. I have a son that's in high school. It's going to be a junior. I have nephews that are playing at the college level. You know, my outlook on it is for the kids. You know, you got kids that, you know, and I live in Missouri, to where there's a lot of Division II schools in our area. And, you know, a lot of those kids don't have a shot the only shot they have is game film and going. And when you look at the Big 10 and the Pac-12 canceling their season, and it's not just football. It's everything. These kids go to school to do this stuff, for schooling, for sports. It helps keeps kids motivated. Another thing that I worry about with the college football landscape and the colleges as a whole is the money, you know. And I understand, you know, you look at the Big 10, for instance. Big 10 is all state schools, so they're going to be helped. You know, you start talking into a few schools in the Pac-12. I think there's two private schools in the Pac-12. Those are the schools that are going to be affected the most. You know, I worry the most about those schools, honestly, being able to, you know, keep the doors open, because, you know, 75 to 80% of the money they generate from football helps keep that school going. Helps offer these kids the opportunities that they have to go to these schools. You know, I think it's going to change the landscape of where a lot of kids choose to go to school. You know, I was watching Kirk Herbstreit them on ESPN the other day, and they were talking about, you know, they're talking about possibly moving into the spring. Mm-hmm. The time between, you know, talking about, you know, I've been a part of youth football, USA football. You know, better, safer game is the new way of teaching the game at all levels. And the first thing I think of when you go to spring games is you're playing a spring schedule, turn around and play a fall schedule right after that.
Sure.
It's just kind of starting a you know, something that we really don't want to get into.
Sure.
You know, spring sports, even at the high school level,
and two for you with if you're going into the high school level here, you brought the high school sports into play here. So if you're talking high school sports, and if they do, you know, postpone, let's say, the fall sports into spring sports, then you have some of those kids that are multi-sport athletes that play football in the fall, maybe basketball in the winter, and then, you know, do cross country or track, baseball in the spring. You know, now you're making them choose, okay, what sport am I going to play? You know, so
absolutely, you know, and that's the biggest worries. You know, I'll use my son for example. That's his biggest worries. You know, he missed his sophomore year of baseball, crucial year at the high school level. And then you come into football. You know, they had a great team last year. They're going to have a better team this year. But they're scared to death, and mainly him personally, because he was a sophomore. Now he's a junior. You miss that junior year. That is a crucial time in a football for a football player, softball player, volleyball player, that is when you make and give yourself an opportunity to play at that next level.
Sure.
Because if coaches, college coaches and stuff like that, they don't start seeing you. They start seeing you as a junior, and then they acknowledge who you are, and then they kind of watch you, look at your grades, and go from there. Because let's be honest, in America now, with the credits that they have to have, their second half of their senior year really does not go to their total GPA because they're already accepted into colleges by Christmas most of the time.
Of course, yeah.
And that's hindering. That's not only hindering high school; it's hindering college kids as well. I look at the BIG-12. Got a few private schools in there. You talk about the ACC. They got, I think, six to eight private schools in there. And then we all know the SEC is going to play rain, sleet, or shine. But they have other things they have to think about. And I think that's why they're delaying their season. I think that's why they're taking this as slow as possible to make that final decision, because you take those schools and they may not be there in a couple of years. I mean, it's just the way it is.
Sure. So let's transition back to the college sports, and specifically the Power 5 conferences. Now, I know we've had some other conferences that have postponed their fall sports, or some schools that have actually canceled all their fall sports and not postponed it. But let's transition back into the Power 5 conferences here and take a look at the Big 10 and the Pac-12 here, and really look at, okay, so why did they postpone the fall sports when, if you're in one of those Power 5 conferences and you have the SEC, the ACC, and the Big 12 that have not came out yet, and I guess publicly said that they're postponing anything yet, but they have publicly came out and said, this is what we're doing. This is our target dates as for when, okay, we're going to start classes back up. This is when we're going to allow students back in. This is when we're going to start practices. This is what we're doing for practices, so forth. So when you're in a Power 5 conference and you have 3 out of the 5 that are laying those plans out, and I know the other 2 conferences that have postponed fall sports were laying those plans out as well. But wouldn't you think collectively, as a Power 5 AD or president of one of those universities, that when you're making these decisions, why wouldn't you get together with all the other ADs, the presidents, everyone else, and kind of come out collectively and as a group and say, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're all going to postpone, or this is what we're going to do, as a Power 5 conference
unit.
Lay out that plan and go from there. Why just break up from the other Power 5 conferences and say, okay, we're going to postpone fall sports until the winter or until January?
I'm not so sure I'm not so sure this isn't kind of a start. These colleges are worried to death about having all the rules that have changed. Paying the players, like you were saying earlier, the unions, for the players in college football. I'm not so sure that maybe a couple of conferences don't want to go that route, But I don't. It doesn't make sense to me. You look around the landscape of sports, everybody's talking to everybody. I don't know why the Power 5 didn't come together knowing it's a multi-billion-dollar industry and make that decision as a whole. Talk to the NFL owners, talk to the higher powers, and make a decision as a whole. I hope it's not a selfish decision.
I agree. I totally agree with you. And, it's one of those things where, obviously, everyone is making this about football because football is what drives the money into these universities. And that's what, myself and, I'm assuming you as well, look forward to in the fall besides your own son's football games and everything else like that. But it's something that we look forward to on those Saturdays come September, and some, in past few years, late August there leading up into Labor Day weekend and everything else when you have, basically the week 0 games. But to me, and I was talking about this with my wife the other day. A lot of people are making this, just about football, where it's more than just football. You have volleyball, you have soccer, you have cross country, you have golf possibly for maybe women's or men's depending on when they play. You have rifles. You have possibly wrestling, or you have all these other sports that are being affected by it. I just don't think that these universities want the liability. If they do say yes and they do start this, and then all of a sudden you have something like the Florida Marlins or the St. Louis Cardinals come out, and where you start getting all these players or athletes testing positive, then what's the shutoff? Where's the cutoff valve then? And are we going to get sued? I'm really thinking that a lot of these universities, they just don't want the liability that goes with it.
Well, and I agree with you on that. But here's my question. Whenever to that, what you just said is, if they feel that way about it, and if sport is the key cog to this cause, you got how many students are average, at an Ohio State or Nebraska. But yeah, I know kids that are being moved into the dorms at Big 12 schools, Big 10 schools, and to go to school. So that's my biggest question is you're going to have classes. They're having classes at the schools, correct?
I believe they are, but at the same time, I think they're also doing, and maybe some classes are doing a distant learning, but I truly don't know. I really don't. I mean, that's
my biggest thing.
Yeah.
If they have school, you're putting yourself in a situation anyways. I mean, you can, and that's the thing about kids, I've coached them from, kindergarten all the way up through, the junior high levels. And you can tell a kid one thing, and I can promise you, even at 17,
they're going to exactly do the opposite.
They're going to do what they want.
Yep.
So you can herd cattle in the room. You can keep them separated. Only have 25, 30 kids in your auditorium or whatever it is, wherever you teach. But when they get out of that classroom, that's where that's where the corona is going to happen.
Sure.
That's where they're going to pass it.
Sure.
Is you're not going to do away with the parties. You're not going to do away with the social gathering.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that's what college is about.
Yeah.
And being a parent of a kid, older kids, it makes you think. Back whenever I was in school, and went to college, it's the atmosphere. It's the whole ball of wax. It's not about the sports. It's not about necessarily the school. That's what it's supposed to be about. But it's also about the social interaction.
It's about those Thursday night, Fridays and Saturdays, right? And not going to class on Fridays and start drinking in the afternoon.
For most of them, but they figure out at that age, more than any age, in my opinion, in your life, you figure out who you are as a person. And
Sure.
That college atmosphere as a whole is something that, in my opinion, every kid needs to take that opportunity and have that opportunity and have fun. Learn who you are, make new friends, because that, in my opinion, that's a lot of the problem with the younger generation coming through now. They don't ever have to, everything. There's no voice. There's no talking. There's no getting to know somebody face to face. It's a lot on your phones. So it limits them even going through high school and coming out of high school it's limiting them on being able to have a conversation with adults, who in turn is going to be the people that they're working for in the very near future. So, I mean, I see if this whole thing as a hindrance to these kids and who they can become in the future. You know, that's where you learn a lot of what you do as an adult is in those 4 or 5 years in college.
Sure. Well, and two, once you think about it, if, you had some of these players that were coming out, publicly and on social media saying that they were, we want to play, we want to play this and that, and for the right reasons too, Joe Burrow and a couple others, Trevor Lawrence was a big advocate for it, saying that, some of these kids, this is all they have, their team is their family. That where they are with the school, coming to school, getting those meals a day as a student athlete, being in the classroom, being in the weight room, or just being with your friends, with your teammates, your family, that is, the highlight of their life. That is the best case scenario for them. And so I get it. I truly do. I feel bad for all the student athletes right now. And for all the students that, are incoming freshmen or seniors, that are going through this tough time that, may or may not be able to sit in a classroom or experience those experiences that, you and I experienced when we went to college. But it's interesting, as I was talking yesterday with my wife, say someone brought up, doing a college bubble. Okay, so yeah, you could possibly do a college bubble. Is it realistic? Highly doubtful. I really don't think so. Because I think you're putting more money and more effort into each individualized sport then, because then you're going to have tutors for every sport. You're going to have, hotel rooms or wherever, for each individual sport. You're going to have to do all this testing, all the COVID testing, just think if they do the testing like they do, in the NFL or NBA right now, MLB. I mean, think of how many COVID tests that each university would just have to go through and the amount of money that they would spend each and every week on everything. So it's definitely
with no money coming in,
no money coming
college
in
besides tuition.
Yep. Yeah. So it's definitely it's an interesting landscape right now as we come into, the college sports season, or, lack thereof right now.
Well, and that's it, and you hit a good point on these kids, some of these kids, it's all they have. If you watch any of the Last Chance U stuff.
From just the past 3-4 seasons, and I don't know if you've watched it this year. I have, but yes, you see all those kids that come from broken homes, broken families, rundown cities, and everything like that, and that is basically all they have.
Yeah, and that's just football. That doesn't count the rest of it. If it wasn't for that individual sport that they play,
where would that person be?
Yeah.
Yep.
They may not have an opportunity to get a college degree, to be the first person in their family to have that college degree.
Sure.
And that's the biggest thing with the fall sports as a whole.
Yep.
Is I feel bad for the kids. Of course, obviously, I feel bad for myself and my boys and my family. We don't get to watch college football because everybody knows that college football is one of the most
Yeah.
enjoyable things on her.
Sure. Sure.
You know? The
So
kids still have passion.
So real quick here,
Go ahead.
Josh. We're gonna have to get to a commercial break here. But real quick before I have to let you go. So what is the scenario there in Webb City, Missouri, and for your boy there? What's going on there with the state of Missouri and the high school sports there?
Well, the state of Missouri right now is they just announced something today. They are giving the option to any school in the state that if they choose to delay all fall sports to the spring, they have that option now. But as far as we had a parents meeting on Sunday here locally at our high school, and it's kind of the same thing all over the state. The boys are getting a temperature checked every day. I've actually worked for a company that sprays locker rooms down and disinfects and all that kind of stuff. We have a chemical that we're spraying the locker room with once a week that kills, human coronavirus and all the viruses that you can think of. So they're getting that done. They have to wear masks. If you're on the field playing the game, you do not have to have the mask over your face.
Okay.
If you're on the sideline, you have to have the mask on your face. They have limited
Really?
the amount of players on the sidelines. We're a little 4A school in Missouri, but we have 132 kids, sophomore through senior. So what they've already done, what they've already announced at our high school is that we will have a traveling team that will only travel 60. And we're looking at, the state is looking at mandating an amount of kids on the sidelines to limit the amount of contact. Because
Okay.
you got 100 kids on the sidelines.
Sure.
They're right on top of each other.
Oh yeah.
But even the guys that are playing, as soon as they step off the field and they go to the bench, after they're done, they put their mask on, and that's how they handle everything. So
Okay.
practices every morning, they get there, check their temperatures, they wear their masks. They wear their masks during practice. Coaches wear masks, and we're moving on as planned as of right now. We have a scrimmage on Saturday. They limited our jamborees, which is like a little local area scrimmage against other high school teams. We usually have four teams. Now it's down to just two. It's one team versus another in a little scrimmage. That's next weekend, and then as of right now, in 2 weeks, kick off on Friday Night Lights, man.
Okay. All right.
But we'll see what changes, and I'll definitely let you guys know.
No, we appreciate it. We appreciate you listening and calling in tonight, and good luck to you and your son's football team, and we'll be rooting for you here in South Carolina. So we appreciate it, Josh, and from Webb City, Missouri.
Hey.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, and keep kicking butt on this thing.
I appreciate it, bud, and my New Balances thank you as well. And till next time, we will talk with you later. So thank you, Josh Belcher.
Bye-bye.
Take care. All right, folks. So we'll break here for a commercial break here real quick and get back, and got another phone in here, partner in crime. So we will see you here on the flip side. All right, we are back here on the Big Stove, Thursday, August 13th. Hey, just want to give a quick shout out to my man, my boy, Joe Everson, who painted this picture, my logo, our logo here behind me, the Big Stove. Did that and also did another portrait for me that I am absolutely in love with. It's one of my all-time favorite baseball players, Ernie Banks of the Chicago Cubs. Next episode, I'll put that behind us here. But just did an absolutely amazing job on both portraits. Again, Joe Everson. He's actually from Greenville, South Carolina. If you guys haven't heard of him, go ahead and Google YouTube. Joe Everson, National Anthem Singer. I have another one of his portraits in my office at work of Iwo Jima, the flag being brought back, stood back up during that battle, and just does a fantastic job all the way around, even better person. So thank you, Joe Everson, for my portraits here. Couldn't be more happy with them. So thank you about that. So, all right. So getting back to talking about sports here. As you guys heard, was on the phone with Josh Belcher from Webb City, Missouri there, talking about the Power 5 conferences and everything else like that. So now got another phone in here. My partner in crime, who is not here tonight physically, but he is at his house and he is called in. And so we welcome Josh, the Hebrew Hammer. How's it going there,
Thursday,
Josh? Happy Thursday. Doing good, bud. Doing good. How are you doing over there?
I'm doing good. I was just reading the news. You think TMZ is going to release a video for the Seahawks QB? You think you see that news story today?
Did you say Seattle?
The Seattle cornerback that got cut after trying to disguise the girl as a
player.
I'm waiting.
Oh
waiting
my
for
God!
That hotel footage. You know it's coming.
I cannot wait for that footage. I tell you what, like some of these players, they get so creative in trying to bring, girls or whatever into, their locker rooms or hotel rooms, whatever, on road trips, blah, blah, blah. So I cannot wait to see that footage.
See the video.
See what exactly she looks like as a person, find out who she actually is. So we can get a, kind of a before and after portrait of her, what she looks like during the day. And then at night, this is what she looks like. So definitely be interested to see how that plays out. But yes, you said he did get cut, correct?
He got cut. Oh, he got cut. I mean, Pete Carroll is not about that sort of conduct, so they cut him. I mean, I think he was an undrafted rookie. I mean,
okay.
A rookie. So, I mean, come on, you got to be smarter than that. But was just looking at the NFL news of the day. I know you said you were talking college. I'll briefly update. Talk some football for those of us that want to go NFL. It's a good day to be a tight end. I'll tell you what, Big Stove. Good day to be a tight end.
Travis Kelce signing a 4-year, $57 million deal. Wow,
George Kittle, 5 years, $75 million. I'll tell you, Zach Ertz is waiting. I think he's next.
He didn't have a very good productive year last year. I didn't think so. I think his payday is going to be put on the back burner for right now. But
yeah, I wonder if the language on some of these contracts, if given the world that we're in with COVID, what language and what provisions are in there. I haven't seen that anywhere in any of the news articles, but you have to assume that there's got to be something as a player, and beyond obviously passing the physical. But if you're giving me guaranteed money, got to have some guarantees, but also, and we talked about this off air the other day on what counts as a year. I mean, if you all of a sudden get COVID in the middle of October or they shut the season down, how many games is it that you earn a year for some of these guys where you're talking, franchise tag, look at that. You're talking about $30 million. What if we shut down in October? Does he get the full year? I'm sure some of the contract language is beneficial to the owner, sure. But it'd be interesting to see how it stands out.
So you're talking the language and the contract and everything like that. So I did see, and I haven't read, any articles or seen any other articles other than just what I saw on the ESPN headline earlier today. But $30 million of it is guaranteed, or is his signing bonus. But then he does have a injury guarantee of $40 million. So if he does get injured, he gets an extra $10 million guaranteed money. So I thought that was very interesting to see. I don't think I've seen, a lot of, guaranteed for injury contracts out there, or if there are, a lot of it has not been made known to the general public. So I really thought that was very interesting to see today, especially for a tight end, who.
Sure. And I mean, I also saw, to piggyback on the NCAA with what you guys were talking about earlier, whereas I wonder if there is truly no college football that everybody shuts down, does that impact? Because I've seen reports. I mean, obviously you have a lot of different NCAA reporters that now are going to be doing NFL games. I would imagine we're going to get a lot more NFL analysis because the sports world is just going to converge on the NFL. But I wonder if it's going to open up for Friday or Saturday games. I mean, the NFL has that wide open. I don't know if they're going to do that. I mean, I don't know how scheduling would permit for that. I don't know how they're doing stadiums, if it's going to be social distancing, et cetera. So, I mean, you could pretty much flex the game to Saturday. I mean, I don't think, respectfully, anybody is using a stadium right now. So I don't think a Saturday makes a hell of a lot of difference with a Sunday. I wonder if we have 3 days, football weekends now. Who knows?
You bring up a good point, and, I know a lot of us folks who enjoy football, enjoy the sport, enjoy watching it, do the fantasy and everything else like that, where, in the past you had, let's look at, you have Monday Night Football. Okay. Then you have Thursday Night Football. Then typically, you would have maybe a Friday college game. And then obviously you have your Saturday college games. And then you have your Sunday NFL games. So now if college doesn't play, then you could potentially have Monday Night Football, Thursday Night Football, Saturday and Sunday. So you're still almost getting the same amount of football games throughout the week. It just may not be as many in one day or anything like that, but it's a very good possibility that could happen, that could, string out, I don't know if string out's the correct terminology here, but, keep teams, I guess further apart, or socially distanced, right. I guess you could say, in this era, where they play on a Saturday, they obviously get tested afterwards. They get tested on Sunday, get tested on Monday or something like that, and then, maybe they play on a Sunday, or, whatever the case may be, to where you can obviously.
Yeah, certainly.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I mean, if you look at, if you're doing a Friday night game, Friday night lights, Cowboys, Giants, 8:00 kickoff or whatever, to make sure that Pacific time you can still be after work hypothetically and catch the game. I think even TV ad revenue for those folks would be insane, because on Friday Night Football, you also have the ability for it to be in a national market. Everyone's going to watch it. Like, to your point, you split up some of the things, and instead of having 5 1:00 games on Sunday and 5 4 o'clock games than Sunday night, Monday. If you have one Friday, a Saturday, 1 and a 4, maybe even a 7 at night, and then 2 1 o'clocks on Sundays. I mean, but the only thing is, as I'm talking it through with you, is the Thursday night games, we all know a lot of the times they're garbage. The players are tired. They don't have enough time to recover. Assuming if you're going to spread it out like that, you need to make sure that those teams that are playing early, you're not playing Friday night, and then playing the next Friday night, or not playing like Saturday afternoon and then Friday night or something like that where you don't have any time to recover.
Sure.
I don't know. It'll be interesting. Everything is interesting in 2020, but this will certainly be something as it pans out, because we're bordering on 2-3 weeks from opening game at this point.
Oh yeah,
are we not? I mean,
I think we're probably, if not 3 weeks, then we're right around a month. Right around a month from opening, or from the first game. Both
September 10th.
Yeah,
September 10th.
Okay,
so we are
less than
we're 20 something days out. We're almost halfway through MLB, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're 60 game season. We're 20 something games in.
Yeah. My beloved Cubs are 12-3 right now, and so go Cubbies. But yeah, baseball's in full swing. They're on track to play 60 games and then start the postseason, when they usually do, right there, first part of October. So, still got that going on track, besides a few hiccups here and there from a couple teams. Won't say any name, Cardinals and Marlins, but yeah. Other than college sports,
Was intense.
What's that?
Was definitely intense.
Yeah, you got to get your jabs in on them Cardinals whenever you can if you're a Cubs fan. But other than college sports, everything is on track to play. You have the NBA that's starting there. They just finished their, I guess you're not round robin, but finished out the rest of their somewhat of a regular season. They're starting their playoff games next week. And then your NHL, they're already starting their playoff games. So, yeah, it'd definitely be an interesting next couple of months here.
Perfect. Well, we will, for those of you listening with the Big Stove, we'll be there with you through all of it. It will be an interesting rest of the summer and early fall, and we'll just have to keep an eye out on all this. I'm gonna have to run, but appreciate checking in with you tonight, and hopefully we can do more of this as for me, clarity wise, like you're coming in crystal clear, technology wise. For those of you out there, I hope you can hear me fine, and I'm happy to make this as much of a regular thing as we can. It's always a pleasure.
Hey, we appreciate it. They're the Hebrew Hammer, Josh Freed. So thank you, OJ, and we shall talk with you later, bud.
You got it. We'll talk soon.
All right, take care.
Yes, bye.
All right, so the Hebrew Hammer there calling in and giving his perception and of everything that's going on in the world of sports, talking a little NFL football there, especially with the Kansas City Chiefs Travis Kelce signing today. So, but looks like we have another caller here. We'll have to take another commercial break here, but we'll get to him here shortly. But thank you guys for listening. This is The Big Stove, and The Big Stove is brought to you by thepocketpairclub.com. Club number 26881. Pocketpairclub.com. Club number 26881. We'll be right back after this message. All right, we are back here on the Big Stove, Thursday, August 13th, 2020. So before we get to our next caller here, we'll dive kind of into a scenario that was kind of brought out this week, first part of the week, when it was kind of made known before it was formally announced that the Pac-12 and the Big 10 conferences were postponing fall sports. And my hometown college, Nebraska Cornhuskers, they made it known that they were wanting to play in the fall, and if they needed to look elsewhere, they would. Obviously drew a little heat from some people, especially Desmond Howard there, formerly a Michigan Wolverine. He was on that 97 co-national championship. The other co-national championship was the Nebraska Cornhuskers. But anyways, so it brings us to the scenarios of what if a Big 10 or a Pac-12 school, since their fall sports are postponed, what would happen if they went to a different conference? Or could they? Would they? So on the phone now, we have Dave Evans from Joplin, Missouri here. Dave, welcome to the Big Stove. Thanks for listening. Thanks for calling in, bud.
Thanks for having me. Enjoyed everything you've been talking about so far.
Hey, we appreciate it, and my New Balance kicks thank you as well. So what is your take, or do you have a scenario on if one of the Power 5 conferences, schools that have postponed fall sports, do you think that one of them would try and join another conference or try to play football in the fall?
I think it's going to come down to a business decision. A lot of the Big 12 or some of the Big 12 schools have their own TV networks, etc. As of right now, the Big 12 only has 10 schools. This would be a perfect opportunity to reach out and grab a couple if we needed to. It comes down to the kids want to play, let them play. I know the conference, the Big 10 was the big one that canceled, and then the Pac-12 followed along as well. To be honest, I'm kind of leery to say if we'll even have football this year. It's starting to look like we aren't. But at some point, we've got to move on with our lives and realize that this is a type of flu and it's not going away anytime soon. We can't cancel life and everything we know in it just because we don't know what it is, and there's so many things that are changing.
Right on. No, I feel you in a lot of those sentiments there, and agree with you on aspects there. So getting back to what you had just said on the Big 12 only has 10 schools right now, and it'd be a perfect opportunity for someone to join. Now, I know, Nebraska, formerly of the Big 12, they opted out. I believe 2011 was the first year that they became a member of the Big 10. So out of, let's just say, the Big 10 and the Pac-12 right now, since those two are the only conferences in the Power 5 that have postponed their fall sports, what two schools would you like to join the Big 12?
I would love to see Nebraska come back to the Big 12 just so KU can have a chance to beat them, although it probably won't ever happen for a while. But with your guys' new coach, I have confidence in our new coach that KU might be able to sneak one by the old Cornhuskers.
Okay. So who would your second college be?
I don't know. It'd be tough between Michigan State and Michigan.
So you would not welcome Colorado back?
Colorado left for a reason. If they want to get out that bad, there's plenty of other schools with bigger opportunities for as far as television rights and just bigger stadiums to play in. Colorado was fun while they were in here, and it was always nice to go out there. But at the same point in time, I don't see that what they brought to the Big 12, it really didn't bring anything to it. Where if you bring some of these bigger name schools in, I feel like we could get a bigger TV ratings for the Big 12. We'd be pushing up there with the SEC if we get some bigger name teams into the Big 12.
Gotcha. So one of the reasons I know why Nebraska left the Big 12 in the first place was because of TV money and TV rights and everything, and I believe that was kind of around the same time that Texas was coming out with the Longhorn network. So do you think that if one of these schools would be willing to join the Big 12, or in said case Nebraska wanting to possibly come back in this scenario, do you think that Texas would give up a share of their Longhorn network to the rest of the Big 12 members?
I don't necessarily think they would give up a share, but I would, as a business person, I would go into it saying, with COVID going on, you guys aren't able to play. You're not getting your TV spots that you normally get. You're not getting the fans, the merchandise that you sell due to TV games, to football games. I mean, you're losing all of that revenue. They're going to have to make that revenue up somewhere. And I know they said they wanted to play in the spring, so then you're going to cut into college basketball and college baseball, and you're going to compete with the other three sports or other two sports, the main sports, while you're trying to play football too. I mean, the fans can't be at every game, at every sporting event. I mean, you're going to have to pick and choose whether you want to go watch football, watch baseball, watch basketball. And with COVID going on, I feel like this is a perfect opportunity to go after some of these teams that may have left or were leery about coming on. I mean, as of right now, the Big 12 is still going to play. We're still yet to know what's going to happen with the football season as far as college goes. But I feel like now is your perfect opportunity to make your sales pitch to them. Go out and get the kids that want to play. And if possible, I mean, bring them into the conference, even if it is just for a trial year, just to get them to play. I mean, the options are open. It's going to come down to the athletic directors and the people who are making the big decisions, whether they're going to sit the whole year out. I mean, you can play devil's advocate here. You're sending the kids to school. The kids are going to be in classrooms, online, whatever. They're still going to be in the same setting, similar setting as normal, but then you're going to take football out. I mean, what are you getting rid of? Tailgates, people are still going to party. You're getting rid of all the people in the stands. They're still going to find a way or somewhere to watch football if it goes on. Why not join a league that'll let you play, get your fan support, get the money revenue from TV games? If you make a run at something, maybe you'll win a championship or something. I mean, there's so many questions that are up in the air with everything that's going on, but
oh, sure.
I definitely think it's a viable option for them to look at other leagues at this time, since the Big Ten has decided not to play.
I gotcha. No, all valid points right there. So, so let me get your take on the comments that were made by my school head coach Scott Frost earlier this week, when he said, they wanted to play football in the fall. They would look elsewhere to play football. And then you have Desmond Howard, a former Michigan Wolverine, come out and demand an apology from both him, the AD, and the president, and saying that Nebraska, isn't the school, that the Big Ten needs. So it wouldn't be it wouldn't be bad necessarily for the Big Ten if Nebraska went ahead and played elsewhere and left the Big Ten conference. What are your thoughts on all of that?
Nebraska's had a rough few years. They are growing as a football team, and hopefully we'll get to see the Big Red again as it was back in the early 90s and when they were a big powerhouse. I mean, as far as Desmond Howard goes, Michigan hasn't been anything really to talk about the last few years either. But I think that's where it's people that are out of the sport now and gone on to ESPN and other places. I mean, stick with what you know. Right now, ESPN doesn't have anything to talk about because there's not very many sports going on. This is the first thing that comes out for Nebraska. He feels like he needs to say something about it. I'm sure he doesn't want Michigan to play or not really know what his thoughts are on the whole thing. But, I mean, I think it ultimately comes down to the head coach, the athletic director, and the people making the decisions. And you're going to make some people mad by wanting to play. You're going to make some people happy by wanting to play. I mean, it just really is going to come down to who's going to say, okay, we're going to play football this year. We're going to move on. We'll accept the consequences and we'll go on from there and just see how it works out. I mean, you can't cancel everything for as long as you want just because there's a cold going around. I mean, it's really just kind of hard to figure out where everybody stands on it because everybody has different circumstances.
Nope, I agree, bud. I totally agree, and so I wish nothing but the best for everyone and their decision making moving forward, and hopefully we can have some sort of a maybe some football games here, college football games here in the fall. But if not, maybe the spring we can definitely get some games played and go from there. But
how will that work if they do the season? If half the conferences play in the fall,
so the NCAA
remaining play spring.
So the NCAA has came out tonight and said that there will be no fall championships at all. Since the amount of teams and everything that have postponed and everything is a significant number. Yet they have to have a certain number of teams playing in order to have a championship. So the president, Mark Emmert, has came out tonight and said that there will be no fall 2020 championships for this year. So, which leaves me to believe that, okay, so if you're not playing for a championship, what are you playing for? Might as well just.
That was my next question.
Might as well just go ahead and postpone everything in the fall and move it to the spring.
Yeah, there's no reason to play if you're not playing for a championship other than just to play. I mean, then it just comes down to money and advertising, TV dollars, and everything else. I mean, the kids are playing to win a championship. Is that for the conferences as well too? There'll be no conference championships.
Correct. No conference championships. No playoff championship. Nothing like that. So no championships whatsoever. So basically, you would play your 8 to 10 game regular season, whatever that may be, and then that's it. I truly believe that since he just came out and said that I think by possibly this time next week, then I think you might have the rest of the Power 5 conferences just go ahead and shut it down as well. But time will tell. Obviously, but it's I know we've talked about it on here before. If they do that and they move everything to the spring, will your juniors that are, going to be draft eligible and that are a high draft projected pick, will they play in the spring? Will Trevor Lawrence go ahead and play in the spring? And possibly risk injury playing in the spring when he's getting drafted in April. Yeah, so it brings a lot of questions to the table, not just for your current football players, but for the future of football. Your scouting,
freshmen,
your incoming freshmen, your recruiting, everything involved. I mean, your player transfers. What does your player transfer portal look like? Now, I brought up the question just the other day to the Hebrew Hammer, if say someone in the BIG10 or the PAC-12, they're postponing their season to the fall or to the spring, can they go ahead and transfer right now to one of those schools that are that are still playing currently, and go ahead and play, you know. There are a lot of questions, just a lot of questions that I think are still unanswered. And I don't think everyone has the answers right now to it, but I do think that making the decision not to play right now, I think was a mistake. I think we need to wait and see how everything was going to transpire here in the next few weeks. Because I know here in South Carolina, our cases have been going down tremendously this past week and everything. So I think if we just waited out a couple more weeks, I think we could have seen, the decline of everything and then gone from there to make a decision. But, again, I know we talked about it earlier tonight, the liability that these universities are trying to get away from. I mean, I get it. I mean, if you're a university and, you have the potential to make all this income, from fall sports being played, but then at the same time risk all these liabilities, all these lawsuits possibly, and possible health insurance for all these players and these athletes and just all the testing and everything else like that. Like, what outweighs the other? Does playing outweigh everything else, or, postpone it for a little bit and then go from there and, then see what happens. But just
if NCAA altogether cancels, do you think NFL will move to Saturday games?
I think there's a very good possibility that you will start to see. I think you'll see the Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday games. And I was talking with the Hebrew Hammer earlier today that there's a very good possibility that if the NCAA postpones until the spring, I think you'll start to see some of the college announcers transition over to NFL games. So
you can get rid of Buck.
Joe Buck he can go bye. But there's still a lot of unknowns, and I think until that first snap is actually played, I really don't think we'll have all the answers. And until then, but at the same time, I don't think you'll have all the answers even when that first snap is played. But I think you'll have a better grasp of everything once you get there, and we just got to get there first in order to do all that. So, but hey, Dave, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your night to listen, to watch us here on the Big Stove, and for taking time to call into our show and speak some sports to us. So really appreciate
thanks
that.
For having me on. I appreciate it. Look forward to listening to more.
I appreciate it, bud, and we'll look forward to you calling in the future. So you have a good one, and you stay classy, bud.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Dave. Hey, that was Dave Evans from Joplin, Missouri, calling in here and talking with us on the Big Stove. It is Thursday, August 13th, 2020. This is the Big Stove. So we've just talked a little bit there, kind of jumped around a little bit, but mostly talked about, the Big 10, Pac-12 conferences. Would the Big 12 or any of the other conferences welcome a school that has just postponed their fall sports? The players transferring, stuff like that. Just a lot of unknowns, a lot of uncertainties as we are coming into mid-August here and the start of fall sport activities at these universities. So I know a couple of the conferences, Power 5 conferences, and a few of the other conferences throughout the NCAA have postponed their fall sports. So obviously they won't be starting up here anytime soon, but you still have the SEC, the ACC, and the Big 12 and the Power 5 that are still good to go here. We shall see where everything goes from here. We're going to take a quick commercial break here, and we'll be back to close out the Big Stove here after a word from our sponsor, PocketPairClub.com, club number 26881, PocketPairClub.com. All right, we are back here on the Big Stove. Thursday, August 20th, 2020, rocking the New Balance and the Cav socks, courtesy of my wife. $60 buy there on sale. Can't beat it. Can't beat it. So, I just want to wrap things up here. Just want to wrap things up here for the night. Kind of just recap what we have talked about tonight. So obviously the big thing in sports this week has been the postponement of fall football, fall sports in general, out of two of the Power 5 conferences, the Big 10 and the Pac-12. The impact it has had or will have on the universities, on student athletes, and then also talked about Travis Kelce, a big signing there for the Chiefs. Chiefs fans are rejoicing in Kansas City today. I do know that. I know a lot of Chiefs fans back there, so I know they're pretty happy with their signings this offseason. Also talked about a couple different scenarios on if some conferences that have postponed their fall sports, what would happen if they did leave their prospective conference and joined another league, and all that. Talked about just kind of a recap of professional sports, the NBA, the MLB, and NHL, where they are sitting at right now in their respective sports. So you got the NFL starting training camp. You have the MLB. They're roughly 20 games into their 60-game season right now. They are on schedule to start their playoffs potentially when they usually do, if they were to play a full regular season schedule, first part of October there. You have the NBA, who just finished up their regular season this week, and they start their playoffs first part of next week. And then you have the NHL, who have started, or actually they did start their play-in games, their round-robin games, and they are starting, they're into their playoffs right now as well. So a lot of things happening in sports. Hopefully things will continue to happen in the world of sports, all for the good. Definitely don't want any more postponements or cancellations or anything else like that. So time will tell on the college sports season here in the with the rest of the Power 5 conferences, hopefully with the postponement of the other two, and Mark Emmert, with the president of the NCAA, coming out tonight saying that there will be no fall championships this year. Hopefully, that doesn't deter the rest of the conferences to just postpone until the spring, but time will tell. So I want to thank everyone for joining in tonight, for tuning in, listening, watching. For those of you that have called in, really appreciate it. Just can't thank you guys enough. Your support means everything. And until next time, this is The Big Stove. I'm your host, The Big Stove. August 13th, 2020. Thank you guys.
Thanks for listening to The Big Stove. Be sure to subscribe and leave us a review. For all the latest, follow us on social media on Twitter @TheBigStove1 and on Facebook, The Big Stove.